All right. What's up, everybody? This is episode 76 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to everybody that's been showing us love so far. For those who haven't seen any of our episodes, go check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. But without further ado, we have a very special guest on here today. You've seen this man on ESPN. You've seen him coaching college basketball, but one thing remains true. This dude definitely helps out a lot of the kids, on their way to success. He's a talent evaluator and also a commentator and a good friend of mine. Today I give you Mr. Paul Biancardi. Paul, thank you for coming on to share your testimony.
Well, Dave, thank you for having me. You're a special guy, and I'm glad we could get together.
Absolutely. So my very first question is, what's Coach B's philosophy? Coaching philosophy, I should say.
Well, I think it's changed a lot over the years because the opportunity to watch these high school kids play 24/7 and still be involved calling college games and going to college practices. I think that you got to look at some analytics when you're starting to coach today. I am still in love with the mid-range game. Call me old school. I still like it. I think that if you can score the ball, that's the most important thing. It's not where you score from, but can you score? With that said, I do like 4 around 1. I still believe in a low post threat, a low post presence on the offensive end. I would shoot somewhere between 20 and 25 threes. I would recruit to build a team that could shoot the ball. And my post player, I said 4 around 1. That one guy could be inside, or that one guy could be anywhere on the court. But I still think you need a post presence, whether it's low or mid post. I play man-to-man defense. I junk it up with some zone every now and then. But I would recruit guys that could shoot the ball, and Dave, guys that can pass the ball. I used to be a Big East coach. You know that, at Boston College. I love guys who can beat guys off the dribble. Nobody better than Allen Iverson that I've seen up close and personal. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to recruit guys right now that can pass and shoot, and I'm going to play to that style of play.
Well said. So let's start from the very, very beginning. When did basketball start for you?
It was the last sport that I played. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, where, you played baseball, you played football. We also played this sport called street hockey. We had a hockey stick and a hard orange ball, nets, and guys would play hockey. And so it's a big sport in Boston. And then I eventually fell in love with basketball at about 13, 14. I was a little bit late to the game. But once I started to shoot hoops outside and that ball went in the net, and even when the ball missed, I was hooked.
Mm-hmm. So when did you already answered that question. So what was the basketball culture like in Boston back when you were a youth?
I think it was a sport that was popular, but not as popular as I mentioned, football. Football is a big thing in Massachusetts. Baseball is huge. Ice hockey is a big deal. I never played ice hockey, but in the summertime, a lot of guys that played ice hockey, played street hockey. Basketball was popular, though. It was, it was a certain group of guys that would go to the outdoor courts and play pickup ball. And Dave, I played, Saturdays in the heat. During the night, you just wait for those lights to turn on at, 7, 8 o'clock at night. We would play outdoor pickup games, and you didn't want to lose, man. If you lose, you sit. And, there'd be 20, 30 guys at the playground. And it was very, very competitive. And that got my juices flowing. It allowed me to play in high school. And then I had a chance to play Division III college basketball. But I didn't make it the traditional way. I never got recruited. I was a walk-on for Tom Thibodeau. You know that name. Wow. He coaches your Knicks. Are you a Knicks guy?
Not really a Knicks fan, but shout out to the Knicks on that great hire.
Great hire. So I had a chance to be a walk-on. And the story's pretty cool, Dave. I go to play Division III basketball, but nobody recruited me, and nobody should have. I wasn't talented enough, and I didn't have physical measurables or athleticism. But I was a guy who loved the game. I was a smart player, and I would do anything to get onto the court or be part of the team. And so my first year I tried out for the team, but I got cut. So like life doesn't get any worse, right? You're a freshman in college. You invite yourself to tryouts, right? You're a walk-on, and they cut you. So now what do? I tried out next year. And the next year I tried out, I'm in the middle of tryouts. I come down with a rebound on somebody else's foot, ankle blows out, broke my ankle. Ooh. I'm in a cast 6 to 8 weeks. So now I'm a junior, and it's like, you're going to stay with this basketball thing, or you're going to try to like get a job and try to make some money. But my passion, my desire, my persistency was to make this team. I made it junior year, and then finally as a senior, Tom Thibodeau went from assistant coach my junior year to head coach. He named me captain with 2 other guys that were really good players. And I got to shout him out. Nate Bryant, he's the president of North Shore Community College. Dave Fazio is the head coach at Andover High, big-time successful coach in Massachusetts. And here I am, started out as a cut walk-on, finished my career as a captain for Tom Thibodeau. So the story is that there's a home for everybody, and if you really want it bad enough, and you have persistency and you have some passion, you got a chance to play college ball.
Wow. Shout outs to the Salem State graduating class of 1985.
There you go. That's what it says in the books.
So how was it playing for Tibbs?
You know, it was awesome. Everybody asks me that question all the time. And, you know, I love the game, Dave, like you love the game. I know you love the game because everywhere I go in New York, you're there. And you're always watching games, or you're at games, and you're writing about games, or you're writing about players. So you have a true passion. So I met somebody who had the same love for the game that I did. But he took my love and raised it because he was so focused. You know, he was so dedicated. And coaching was his passion. Now, that was my passion too, but I had to get the playing out of my system. And he was detailed. He was passionate. He was hard. He was demanding. He made you better. He could understand your strengths and weaknesses. I mean, he was the complete package. And when he wasn't coaching in practice, and he wasn't watching film, and he wasn't writing recruits letters, I mean, he was going to other practices. Rick Pitino was at Providence. Jim Calhoun was at Northeastern. He'd go to Gary Williams's practice at Boston College. I mean, Tibbs was, you know, he was one-dimensional. And he still is that way today, one-dimensional. But I'll tell you what, man, I couldn't have been any more fortunate to play for somebody like him. And being a walk-on, you don't get a lot of chances to play. And shoot-around, game day, would be so physically hard that the guys that I mentioned to you before, the guys that were captains, you know, those guys would come down after shoot-around and say, man, I hope you feel good. I hope you're ready because we're tired already. So Tibbs worked us so hard, but purposely hard. Like we did the shell drill, we went walkthroughs, we did shooting. I mean, he was into all the details of the opponent. So I loved my time with him. I loved my time with my Division III brothers, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
So as a kid, were you a Celtics fan?
As a kid and as an adult that you're speaking to right now, I love the green, man. I love the Celtics. I loved them since the moment I could watch them on TV and listen to them on the radio. And I would do anything to get a ticket to a game. I mean, anything. I would do all kinds of chores around the house, work for somebody, make some money, you know, buy that ticket, take the subway into the game and sit way up high in the nosebleeds. But man, I'd go there when JoJo White and John Havlicek was playing, and Dave Cowens. Those were the Celtics of the 70s.
Shout outs to the Celtics, man. They did very good this season. You know, they were led by a good point guard from New York named Kemba Walker.
Love him. Love him.
Yeah, man. Kemba's really been doing his thing over there. But no, shout outs to also the city of Boston. I love the train system over there. The trolleys and everything. I was actually out in the area not too long ago. So Tom Nelson from Rivals, shout outs to him also.
Great dude, Tom Nelson. He runs a classy program, and he's a demanding coach. All the great coaches are demanding, but he has a wonderful way with kids, and he works with that other Italian, Vinny Pastore.
Yeah, so they had this event called the Breakout Showcase. A lot of good talent was over at the Dana Barros Basketball Club.
Dana Barros, Boston College grad, big-time NBA shooter.
Indeed. So let's go over to when you first started coaching. So St. Lazarus School, the CYO team, like how did that come about?
Wow, Dave, man, you'd be a private investigator. You went way back. I mean, that was my CYO days. All right, so I'm playing high school ball, and I'm also playing what they call CYO, Catholic Youth Organization. I play on Saturdays because high school you play Tuesday and Friday. You have Saturdays off. So I play CYO ball in my hometown of East Boston, and we would travel to other parishes, St. Rita, St. Michael's, St. John's, all the different Catholic parishes, and play on Saturdays. So when I was done playing high school, I knew I wanted to coach, so I started coaching immediately at where I played for St. Lazarus. It gave me an opportunity to coach the game and to have a practice or two during the week, and then get a chance to coach on Saturday. It was the most exciting thing that I was doing at that stage of my life. And I'm graduating high school. I'm about, what am I, 18, 19? I'm at Salem State in college, and I'm coaching CYO ball.
Wow. That's a good start.
And let me just say this, and I don't have a car. Everything was public transportation, the trolleys, the blue line, the green line, the whole bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's me right now. Like I don't have a car either, but I still get around great.
You're like Tom Konchowski.
Only the difference between
where were we?
You were talking about get public transportation.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a car in college. I'm coaching in St. Lazarus. Everywhere I went, I had to take public transportation or bum a ride from a friend.
Yeah. So after St. Lazarus, you went on to coach at Salem State after graduation. Talk about getting that first college job.
Well, that was the goal. Tom Thibodeau left. He was the head coach, and he went to Harvard as an assistant.
Wow.
They brought in a new coach by the name of Dana Skinner. He was like a New England legend, great college player. And then he had a chance to be with the Celtics for a cup of coffee. And so he was the head coach, worked with him, which was exciting because he was such a great player, and it's my alma mater. But, I have no money, and, I don't have a job because if you're coaching, you're working all the time, but you're not really getting paid.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of odd jobs to create income. I went from Salem State to Suffolk University, another Division III program in Boston. And again, now I'm teaching in the Boston public school systems as a substitute teacher. And actually it was quite good. I got to be what they call a permanent sub. That means that I was going to go to one particular school all the time as a substitute. They really needed me. So that was great because if you're a regular substitute, you don't know who's going to call you and what school you're going to go to. So my day's over 2:30, hop on public transportation and go to Suffolk University, do my thing, take public transportation home. Then finally, I mustered up a few $100 to get myself a car because it was getting really taxing taking that public transportation everywhere.
Yeah. So how was the Suffolk job?
It was great. I worked for a gentleman by the name of Jim Nelson. He's a legendary Division III coach at Suffolk. He coached there for almost 30 years. Then he became the athletic director. He's one of those guys that is he is the institution. When you think of Suffolk University, you think of Jim Nelson. He was great for me, Dave, because, he was a fierce competitor, but, he was a gentleman. He was respectful. I was a little bit of a wild cowboy back then. So he was the right mentor at the right time. And he helped me get to Division I. Yeah, he knew Mike Jarvis at Boston University, and he helped me get on to BU as a volunteer. So here I go from Division III to a volunteer. Again, no money, but I'm working substitute teaching during the day. And in the summertime, I work basketball camps to try to make money. And I worked a lot of different camps. So I'm a volunteer for Mike Jarvis. I'm in Division I, the circles, BU, Northeastern, New Hampshire, Albany, Hartford. I'm in the America East Conference, if you will. Back then it was called the North Atlantic Conference. And how about this? My first year in Division I, BU was already successful, but we're in the NCAA Tournament. We're playing Connecticut, Jim Calhoun.
Wow.
And I'm at the Hartford Civic Center. That's where they played the first round. And I'm living a dream. I got no money. I'm in debt about 10 grand, living at home. And I'm in the NCAA tournament as a coach, as the volunteer. And it was fabulous. It was a great, great experience. And I'm very grateful to Mike Jarvis. Also at Boston University, Kyrie's dad.
Dredrick Irving.
Yeah, he was a great player at BU. So I go from Boston University to the grad assistant at BC, and that's when the Big East was bad, man. It was a bad conference. Rolly Massimino, Louis Carnesecca, heavy hitters, John Thompson, God rest his soul. It was just the conference of pros and grown men, and some of the most competitive people I've ever seen in my life were in the Big East back then. I'm a graduate assistant. I'm 28. Now I'm in debt about 15 grand. If I wasn't living at home, I could have never did it.
What was the other 5 grand towards? Was it school?
I don't know, man. I needed money to pay for the car, pay for food. I had to buy clothes. Yeah, I lived at home, but it was in a single parent home. And I don't know. I just kept charging stuff on credit cards back then,
Oh, yeah.
I never thought
the biggest
about
way
money.
to get in debt now.
Yeah, but I wasn't thinking about the money I owed or how much money I didn't have. I just thought about, I'm in the Big East.
Yeah.
That got me up in the morning, 6:30 a.m. I stayed in work till 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to school full time at Boston College because I'm in a master's program. I'm doing everything and anything that program needed. I mean, Dave, I was living off adrenaline. I loved it. And, the fact that I was poor and didn't have any money at 28, it never dawned on me, to be honest with you. I was like Thibodeau, single focus.
Right.
I'm going to get here now. I'm just got to wait for a chance to become an assistant coach somewhere and get paid. And then the next year, believe it or not, we had 2 openings on our staff, and I got one of them. And I felt like I hit that, the lotto.
Wow. That's a big journey right there. That's a really good story.
Well, it's a great story because it just shows you if you do want something and you're focused in on it, you have a great chance of it happening. Now, I was fortunate, though. I could live at home. I could have never been able to live on my own because I never had any income, and I had to keep charging things on credit cards. Your car breaks down, you got to charge it. You need some clothes, you got to charge it. Everything was, on credit really that I didn't even have. But back then they'd give you a little bit of credit. And I'm very grateful. My mother, my sister, my dad, everybody, helped me, or they didn't discourage me from doing this coaching. But I will tell you, they questioned it a lot of the time. They're like, you're making no money. You have no job. I'm like, I'm coaching, I'm working. But you make no money. How do you have a job and make no money? Like, my parents couldn't understand that.
They're old school Italians too.
Oh, they're old school.
Yeah.
And both of them worked their whole life. My mother worked jobs. My dad was a bricklayer. He used to lay bricks and build buildings.
Yeah.
On his knees, man. And that's, my sister was really smart and a hard worker. So they didn't understand that I put so much time into something and wasn't getting paid. Back then, they didn't understand that. But I knew what I wanted.
They understood that as soon as the money came in.
Well, it wasn't that much money, trust me, but it was.
But it was something.
Yeah, it was something. I could pay off my debt, and the most important thing happened at Boston College. I met my wife. She was she was the women's soccer coach. She was the head coach of the women's team, BC Soccer, and here I am, the graduate assistant at Boston College, get promoted to full time. You know, we met in athletic department meetings. You know, we bumped into each other on campus.
Wow.
And, you know, we hit it off and got engaged. And here we are 26 years later.
Shout outs to Miss Teresa Biancardi.
Well, she's big time. She's big time. She came from a ranch in Texas. Like she's a rancher and I'm a city boy.
Wow.
The odds of us coming together in Boston were like slim and none.
Wow,
But,
that's a great story. That's
yeah.
big right there. So, 1994, Boston College makes the NCAA tournament. Like, talk about that Elite Eight run.
Yeah, big time. You know, BC didn't make the tournament for a while. We were knocking on the door. We had 4 seniors. This big kid, Billy Curley, McDonald's All-American, could have went anywhere in the country, wanted to stay home and blaze his own path. Howard Isley, who came out of Michigan. He came out of Michigan with, he played with Jalen Rose and Vashawn Leonard. Wasn't highly recruited. And as you know, went on after Boston College and played in the NBA for 15 years. And now he's the assistant coach at Michigan with Juwan Howard. Malcolm Huckabee from Connecticut, top 100 recruit at the time. He now works for ESPN. And Gerard Abrams was another guard from Michigan. He's coaching high school ball up in Michigan right now. Those were the 4 seniors. And then the 5th guy was this kid, Danier Abram. I don't know if you know him, Danier Abrams.
Yeah, I've heard of him. I actually met him before with Boston when I went to a BC game against when they played my alma mater, St. Francis, Brooklyn.
There you go.
I did get to meet Daniel.
Yep, he's great. And he was like Elton Brand. You know, he's a big bruiser inside, and he was 6'7", 270, and he was what the Big East was like back then, just bruisers. But he was talented. He scored. He rebounded. He was a wide-body dude. So we make the tournament. First game, we're playing Washington State. Calvin Sampson's the head coach, and we are down at halftime by about 8 or 9 points. We come on in the second half, and we win that game, and that kind of got us going in the tournament. You know, comeback win first round. But what everybody remembers is that we played North Carolina, Dean Smith, Rasheed Wallace, Eric Montross. You know, they had a bunch of pros.
They were the real deal back then.
They were really, really good. Who was the other big guy? Montross, Rasheed Wallace, Robert Phelps from New York. Jeff McGinnis was on that team, and they were just loaded. And we beat them. We made 14 threes back then when the three-point shot wasn't as prevalent as it is today. We beat them, and then we beat Bobby Knight back-to-back. So we beat Dean Smith, Bobby Knight, North Carolina, Indiana. We're playing Florida in Miami. The head coach is Lon Kruger for the right to go to the Final Four, and we lost in a very close game.
Yeah, 1994 was also a good year because you guys got a big-time recruit, a local recruit by the name of Chris Herron. And as I recall, you were actually mentioned in the book Fall River Dreams. Yeah.
Chris actually was the year after that. But yes, he came to Boston College, and he's a great kid. He's fun to be around. He's vivacious. He's really coachable on the court. At that time, he was going through some battles. And unfortunately for him, he broke his wrist in one of our first scrimmage.
Yeah.
And when you get hurt and you're in college, you have a lot of idle time. And for Chris, idle time wasn't good because then it gave his mind an opportunity to think about other things and do other things. And, as we all know, he had some problems and some demons, and it didn't work out for him to stay at Boston College. He went to Fresno State. Tark did a wonderful job with him, played in the NBA, and right now, Chris is a guy I look at right now, and I admire him so much because I know what he's been through, I know where he came from, and I see what he's doing today. And he's changing lives, Dave. Every single day he talks to somebody, he's changing somebody's life. He's saving somebody's life. He's trying to keep as many kids away from and off of drugs and alcohol as possible. And, he's a national speaker. He's an awesome kid. He's a great father. In fact, his son went to BC for a little while and transferred out. So shout out to Chris Herron for what he's doing today.
Yeah, man. I love that documentary. Definitely something that any kid playing basketball should watch.
Yes.
Because he went through hell and back to get where he got today. So, Chris, if you ever listen to this or see this, I support you, and I wish you nothing but the best on your endeavors. He's somebody I definitely need to get on here.
Oh, he's fabulous. He shouldn't be alive today, and he knows that. But
yeah,
through the grace of God, he is, and he's done a 360. And I admire him and respect him so much.
Indeed. So another kid that you got from that 94 recruiting class, Dwayne Woodward, a.k.a. 40, a good friend of mine. How was he back in those days?
Oh, man, he could be stubborn at times. But he was feisty. He was competitive. He was scrawny. He was skinny. But he loved to ball, man. You could leave the gym after practice and he would still be in there shooting. Back then guys would just do some extra shooting. He would do extra shooting. He'd play one-on-one. Very competitive. He played for Ron Niclario, as we all know, at Cardoza. 40 had a younger brother who was pretty good, 20, right? Half of 40 is 20. Yeah, Dwayne was immature as a freshman, highly competitive, really good defender. And he was like a combo guard. He wasn't really a point guard, and he wasn't a good outside shooter. But his sophomore year, we win the Big East Championship in 1997, Madison Square Garden. We beat Pittsburgh. We beat the late John Thompson and their great teams. And then we were playing Villanova. They got Kerry Kittles, Jason Lawson, Alvin Williams, 3 NBA prospects. You know how good Kittles was.
Plus Tim Thomas.
Forgot about Tim. That's 4. I mean, on paper, they're a double-digit favorite. Scooney Penn, Dwayne Woodward, Antonio Granger, Mickey Curley, Billy's younger brother, Danny Abrams, and we won the Big East Championship that night. And I got to tell you, the Big East was in its prime. And you're at Madison Square Garden. You're on ESPN, New York City, 9:30 tip. I'm getting goose pimples just talking to you. I really am, man. I really am. That was awesome. But Dwayne was so much, I don't want to say he was fun to coach, but he was the type of kid that comes in and you got to give him some nurturing, some love, some tough love, give him some accountability, praise him when he does well. But I'm going to tell you what, man, I'd go in a fist fight with him because he's not going to leave you. And now today he got into coaching. Now he's at Seton Hall, one of the top assistants for Kevin Willard. I have followed and stayed in touch with him in his coaching career. And when I talk to him, I'm just so proud of him because I love to hear the 360 on, how he used to be and now how he is. And that's one of the greatest things about coaching is they're not your own children, but they're like your own children. And
right.
You treat them that way and you think about them in that fashion. And, you relive the past, and it's really cool. And I love that kid, and I love his family, and I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about Scooney Penn, another local Boston kid that you guys also got. And you also coached him at Ohio State.
Yes. Yeah.
So talk about your 5 years with Scooney Penn.
Well, I'll just tell you this about Scooney Penn. He comes to Boston College. As a freshman, he is the Big East Rookie of the Year. He is killing dudes. Everybody wants to know who Scooney is. We left. We went to Ohio State. He followed us. And by the time he finished at Ohio State, he led us to the Final Four in '99 after a season where Ohio State went like 8-24. The next year, Final Four. And he is the Big Ten Player of the Year. One of the greatest winners I've ever been around. And competitors, I told you how Dwayne was. Scooney was extremely competitive. Chris Herron, competitive. Billy Curley, competitive. Howard Isley, Malcolm Huckabee. These are high-level alpha dogs. Scooney is right at the top of that alpha dog list. Scooney and Chris used to be the backcourt for the BABC. And Wayne Turner. That's a serious guard play. Scooney, he never let his size be a factor at 5'9 plus. Tremendous leader, high-level competitor, great point guard. And he basically willed our team to a Final Four. We had another guy by the name of Michael Redd, who was really good, 6'7" Columbus kid who, he had a long career in the NBA with the Milwaukee Bucks and some other teams. Scooney was the ultimate winner. If he couldn't beat you the first time, he'd find a way to beat you the second time. And he made other people better, and he held other people accountable, and he definitely held himself accountable on the court.
So before we move on to Ohio State, one last thing about Massachusetts. Well, actually two. So during your 7 years at Boston College, there was another program in Massachusetts that was doing big things also, UMass. So how was it coaching against John Calipari at that time?
Ooh, it was like a rock fight. They didn't like us. We didn't like them. No, man, no, it was bad. Bruiser Flint was on that staff, John Robick, Billy Bano. John Calipari took that job from the absolute bottom, not just of New England, but of college basketball. And he made them into a national power. He made them so good that CBS wanted us to play them on national TV at the old Boston Garden. We did. And we played them twice, and we had some good players. We talked about Danier, Scooney. We didn't beat them. They had Marcus Camby, who was a great player. They had Carmelo Treviso, Dante Bright, Dana Dingle, your New York guy.
So that's the Dana, New York Lightning.
I love Dana Dingle. He's awesome. And, so it was some battles, man. Recruiting battles, basketball battles, but I have a lot of respect and admiration for John Calipari, what he did at UMass, what he did at Memphis, and now what he's doing at Kentucky. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame, and he was destined for the Hall of Fame. Great recruiter, tremendous game coach. People don't realize what a great game coach he was. People see him now at Kentucky with all this talent. He didn't have any talent at UMass at the beginning, and he was constantly tweaking things on the court, defensively, offensively. Calipari is really noted for being a defensive coach and a rebounding coach. That was his mantra at UMass. And then he got some talent, could score the ball, but really good X and O guy, great in practice. And he's a guy who I just really admire in coaching.
So, unfortunately, it was an unfortunate incident led to Jim O'Brien moving on to Ohio State. So,
yeah.
It really sucks what happened to them back then. But you guys go on to Ohio State, and after that 8-24 season, Final Four, talk about that Final Four season in '99.
Yeah, that was cool, man. We ran it through where we beat Auburn, Cliff Ellis. We beat St. John's with Mike Jarvis, and now we got Connecticut. And when we were at Boston College, we couldn't beat Connecticut at all. So they have, because they had Ray Allen, Rip Hamilton, when they were at Boston College, when I was at Boston College. So their teams were always so tough. They put Ricky Moore. Ricky Moore was 6'3" guard out of Georgia. He was on Kevin Ollie's staff recently. They put him on Scooney Penn. They played great defense and a really tough game. We lost, I think, 62-58. But the atmosphere of coaching in a Final Four is something I can explain to you all night. You walk out to a shoot-around practice, there's 30,000 people just at your practice. The media is so intense. The stakes are so high. And, on the other side of the bracket, you had Duke and Michigan State. Connecticut beat us. Duke beat Michigan State. Connecticut beat Duke for Jim Calhoun. And I think it was his first national championship while he was at Connecticut in 1999.
Yeah, UConn was really, really good. And shout outs to that UConn team. I actually interviewed one of their players, Rashamel Jones.
Yeah, I recruited him. He's out of Connecticut.
Well, he has some. Well, if you ever get to see the interview, he has some good things to say about Boston College, but he also had some really interesting things to say about UMass as well. What he said was that, basically, it all came down to what his grandmother said. He said that he liked UMass, but that Calhoun was a better, he had the better selling point. She said, his grandmother said that Calhoun was more like a salesman. So she felt that, Calhoun was the better fit. But I think he did speak glowingly of you guys at Boston College.
Well, that's nice. Yeah, we tried. We put our hat in the ring, and it was hard to beat Calhoun and Calipari back then in recruiting. They were so good. And they worked so hard at it. I mean, they worked at it. Calhoun worked at recruiting all the way up until his last day at Connecticut. And we know how hard, John Calipari works at it. He's on planes. He's driving places. He's all over the country trying to get the best players. So he has not stopped. But that's why he's been extremely successful.
Oh, yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask about Mass. So talk about coaching and actually viewing as a kid the old Boston Garden.
Yeah. Incredible place, man. When the Celtics were great, the building would shake. You could feel it shake.
Literally.
Yeah, it could shake and vibrate. It felt like a mini earthquake. It was an old building that I don't know how it was still standing. It would have 14, 15,000 people, for Bruins games, Boston Bruins, for the Celtics. And these Bostonians, man, they're passionate. They're intense. And they want to see their team win. So, it was like the greatest thrill for me as a kid. And even as a coach, like I'm at Boston College and I'm coaching at the Boston Garden. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I first did it, and I'm like 30 years old, and I was still like in awe of that place. It just meant everything to me growing up as a kid. It's like Madison Square Garden that's still going. The Boston Garden had some great memories, and it was an old beat-up building, and they decided to knock it down and build up the new place called the TD Garden. If you look over to my right, that's the old Boston Garden right up there. And
wow.
And right below it is Larry Bird. right up there somewhere where the smoke is Red Auerbach.
Wow.
So I got my Boston roots here in North Carolina.
Hey, that's a good way to bring home with you. So, was it really humid in there?
Oh, it was so hot and it was so dry. I don't know if it was humid. It was more dry. It was like a sauna. It was dry heat.
That bad?
Yeah, and it smelled like urine.
Oh, God.
Oh, and I loved it. Wait, it smelled like a combination of urine and peanuts.
Hey, that's Boston.
No, that's the Boston Garden. That's not Boston.
No. I'm sorry. For all my Boston people out there, don't worry. Just the city is clean.
But so much history, Dave, and you look up at the banners, the Celtics championships, Red Auerbach, what he built there. 11 championships, I believe, at the time. The Bruins won Stanley Cups, and they won their division multiple years. Then the retired numbers of all the great Celtics and all the great Boston Bruins. I mean, I grew up on Boston Bruins hockey, Boston Celtics basketball. So when I'm there on the court, I got to tell you, man, I still pinch myself to say I got to coach a game at the Boston Garden. I'll give you one better. When I'm at Boston University, we played Michigan and Ramil Robinson at the Boston Garden. So it was my
Wow.
I've coached on the old Boston Garden 3 times, and not a greater thrill. For a Boston kid, you coached at the Boston Garden 3 times. You coached at Boston University. You coached at Boston College. You've worked at some Division III schools. So like all the way up until like 33, 34, my coaching career was like a dream. And, Ohio State in the Big Ten was fabulous. Like to be in the Big Ten, to go to Indiana, to go to Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, those venues are incredible.
I can only imagine. Someday I'm definitely going to go check out Indiana. That's the goal. That's the dream. I already seen Notre Dame.
Well, I'll tell you this, that my first year at Ohio State, we go into Indiana, and you're looking down, and there's Bob Knight. And those Hoosiers are wearing those candy apple striped sweats, and there's 19,000 people just ready to chop you up verbally.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they do something well, the place would just erupt. And anytime Bob Knight had any kind of movement, facial movement, body language, whether he was upset or happy, the place would just, you couldn't even hear yourself think. It was so loud. And you had to have extreme mental toughness to execute your offense, to get them off of you defensively because they were so up into you. Then you had to make your shots. And, oh, my gosh, the crowd was such a factor.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we won up there. We won up there 3 times.
Against Bob Knight.
Scooney Penn.
Wow. Yeah, that's big right there. That's big right there. So let's segue into the next phase. You being a head coach at Wright State. Talk about 2003 when you were given that opportunity to be that head coach at Wright State.
Yeah, it was an absolute dream. That's what I wanted since I was coaching at St. Lazarus. You brought that up. CYO basketball. I did want to be a head coach in college. I never had the dream to be in the NBA as a coach. Certainly when you're a young kid, we all dream of being in the NBA someday as a player. But my goal was to be a Division I head coach. Didn't know when I'd get there. Always believed that I would. And then after 7 years at Boston College, 6 years at Ohio State, Boston University, some Division III coaching, a year in high school. Finally I got the call and the opportunity, and I absolutely loved it. It was putting a staff together, recruiting a new team, coaching in the Horizon League was really good then. Brad Stevens was at Butler as the assistant coach back then. Bruce Pearl was the head coach at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he had it going on. UIC Chicago was strong, and Detroit University with Perry Watson. It was a league it was like a city type of college. All these great schools were in cities, and they had some great players, a lot of transfers, and I enjoyed my time there. We had a very good first year. We did some things that Wright State never did before. We won 10 games in the conference. We had the best freshman in the league in Deshaun Wood, who eventually became the player of the year in the Horizon League. So we did some nice things there in my time, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it very much.
Yeah. Also, you were the 2004 Horizon League Coach of the Year.
Yeah, well, that's because we recruited really 5 freshmen. One of those guys, Deshaun. We had a couple of seniors, Seth Dalabo, Bernard Hollins, just fifth-year guys that were really good. We won 10 games. That Wright State never won 10 games in conference play, and I think that was the reason for the award. But I know that I had a great staff. That's so important, Dave, when you get your first job, who you hire. Loyalty and trust becomes such an important factor when you're putting a group and a team together. Yeah, you got to have some talent, and we had a very good first year, and so I was very fortunate to get that.
Unfortunately, you got fired from Wright State in 2007. Like, how hard was it, to lose a job like that you loved?
are you trying to do? Ruin my weekend? No. It hurt. It hurts. Hey, look, anytime somebody rejects you or doesn't want you anymore, it's painful. And but you have to take the good with the bad. In sports, you're going to win games, you're going to lose games, you're going to get hired, you're going to get fired. It was devastating at that time, and there's coaches that are going through it today, and it's something that you never prepare for, and you don't know how you're going to react to it. You find out, who really cares about you. You find out maybe how much more your family not means to you, but how much they can really support you during a difficult time. Look, it's easy to have friends. When I'm going to the Final Four, I had more friends than I knew what to do with. I had more people that needed tickets, and I got more phone calls, than you can ever imagine. When we won the Big East Championship, or we're going to New York to play in the Big East Championship, I had so many friends, Dave. Final Four, I had so many friends. I got the job at Wright State. Hundreds of phone calls within days. You lose your job, you don't find that same kind of support. So you have to find an inner strength. You have to find the people that love you, immediate family members and true friends. And you rely heavily on your faith in God and your spirituality to direct you into that next phase of your life, because you don't know what's going to happen. So the door closed, but another door opened. Had a chance to go to St. Louis University with the late, great Rick Majerus. And actually, I was on the phone this morning with Porter Mosier. Porter was an assistant coach with me and Coach Majerus at St. Louis. Porter now, is at Loyola. He took them to the Final Four a couple of years ago. So we were telling Rick Majerus stories this morning. And that time at St. Louis got me this opportunity, helped get this opportunity for me at ESPN. I'm going to tell you one last quick, really good story. I told you I was a walk-on at Salem State. I told you about the other two captains, Nate Bryant, who's the president right now of North Shore Community College in Massachusetts, president of the school. Dave Fazio, very successful high school coach and physical education teacher in Boston. Dave Fazio was good friends with the person doing the hiring at ESPN back in 2008. My college teammate was basically neighbors with the person who was making the decision on this ESPN job, the director of recruiting, and you get to be a college basketball analyst.
Wow.
So how you treat people and how you care about people is the most important thing you can do, because I love that kid back then and I love him today as a friend, but I would do something for him, not because of who he was. He was just my college teammate. Mm-hmm. I did things for him because that's what my mother taught me to do, good things for other people. Be there for others. So how you treat somebody and how you talk to somebody came back to me 20 years later. And it helped me get that job. So, a lot of people want to be good to people who they think can help them or can do something for them in return. And that's a big mistake. If you treat everybody you come in contact with professionalism, kindness, respect, you don't have to like everybody, but you should treat people with a level of respect, because you never know where you're going to be someday, what you're going to need, and who's going to be there, and who may make the decision on you, or who can help you. So it's a great lesson for certainly myself, but everybody else is, don't just think it's, go help that guy because he can help you. That's a big mistake.
Pause. Jewels right there. Some great jewels, Paul. Some great jewels. So ESPN, how was it, the first few years, you going from one career to another, going from coaching to the broadcast booth?
Yeah, big adjustment. I didn't know anything about the media, had no idea, but they hired me to do the evaluating and the ranking of the best players in the country. And I knew how to evaluate. I knew I could rank the guys. I had to come up with a formula, like how are we going to do it? Activity, potential, and their NBA draft projection. And so I get to fly all over the country, go to the best events, watch the best players, interview the best players. Dave, I learned so much about what makes guys tick, why they love the game, or maybe why they don't love the game. So I started to become a way better evaluator than I thought I was at Ohio State, Wright State, Boston College. Every coach thinks they can evaluate. And a lot of them are really good. But when you do it 24/7, you watch film, you go to events, you study tendencies, you get to know people. Now you can really dig into the bone. It's like being an NBA scout at this level. And so my eye has become so much better. My knowledge has increased. I've learned from NBA scouts. I talk to NBA scouts now. Of course, with the one and done, I'm always talking to NBA guys. And they're teaching me more about evaluating and scouting and what to look for. So it was at the beginning, the transition was hard because my heart was still in coaching. And it still may be to this moment as I speak with you. But the career has been incredible. God's given me an unbelievable platform, a gift to help other people, so players could get their proper recognition when the time is right, when they earned it. Helping universities based on evaluating players, try to give them the right information. So I know I got a beautiful platform, and it's kind of strange. You think about it. I go from a long college career into a unbelievable career with ESPN. I watched ESPN like you do all the time as a kid. I thought I'd be part of their staff and their organization. And so I feel very privileged every day, and I'm grateful every day to have this. And the only reason I have this job is two reasons in my mind. One is probably because God was giving me the grace to get this to be in basketball. He knew my heart. And second of all, how I treated my college teammate, who ended up being good friends with the person making the decision. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It had nothing to do with me, Dave. It was God's grace and how I treated my former college teammate.
Shout outs to Dave Fazio. He changed your life.
Fazio, boy.
He changed your life, man.
He did.
So tell me, what, for all the people that need to know out there, what's game day like for you?
Exciting. Ted Emmerich and I, Ted, you see him at all the games. You're always
Shout
shouting.
out to Ted. That's my guy right there.
Oh, the ultimate professional. So talented. Very fortunate to work with him. We're a great team. He's so professional. He's so talented. And he has such a great preparation for the games. He knows everything about all the kids. He has more notes on every kid that he's ever going to use, because he takes his job so seriously. But he doesn't take himself seriously. And I think that's why, neither do I. I mean, I know who I am. But I do take the job seriously. And I take the kids and the profession seriously, the game. So we meet in the morning, usually with one of our producers. Ted and I have talked a couple of days prior. We get on the phone with the coaches. We do our conference call, Ted and I and the coach. We meet in the morning for breakfast. We kind of discuss some of the themes for the game, some of the players, the backgrounds. The recruiting obviously is so important. I discuss a lot about what type of player they are, where I see them in the future, any backstories, human interest, situations and stories we can talk about. Then we talk about the whole landscape. Let's look at the whole ESPN 100. What's going on in high school basketball? What's going on in recruiting? What's the latest news? We try to bring that into the telecast as well. We get to the arena usually an hour and a half before the game. We rehearse. We talk to the players. We talk to the coaches. And then we're ready to tip it up.
So another question for you that the general public wants to know. How do you go about evaluating prospects, and what do you look for when you rank them?
Well, I treat it like I was coaching at Ohio State or Boston College or Wright State. I watch the games and I'm looking for the players where the talent and the performance will stand out. I have a job now of ranking just 100 players. So to rank 100 players, I got to see 1,000, whether it's live or on film. I try not to miss anybody. And every time I watch a player, we're looking at performances. Does he have a standout performance? Or what caught my attention about that player that I want to watch next time? Take a lot of mental notes, take a lot of physical notes. And when I break down a player's game, I'm looking at, okay, in a snapshot, his athleticism, speed, quickness, vertical, power, explosion, wingspan, strength, all those physical measurables, shoe size, right? I want to see how big his feet are. Maybe bigger the feet, maybe he's still growing. It's not a physical measurable, but I like to know everybody's birthday, so I know how young they are in the game. And then after that, I look at the skill level. What skills does he bring to the game? What's the shot look like? What's the range? What's the accuracy? 3-point line, mid-range? Is he a paint shooter where he just scores in the paint, which is fine? So I try to establish a touch, an accuracy, and a range for their jump shot. And when I look at skill, I also look at the free throw. I look at ball handling. Does he handle the ball with confidence and comfort, or is he a shaky ball handler? Can he go right? Can he go left? What's his drive game like? Does he have a float game? So I got all this checklist that, I can go on and on with you. Is he a layup maker, or does he miss, close to the basket? Why does he miss close to the basket? So then athleticism, skill level, and then I'm looking at defense and rebounding. Separate categories, but on-ball defender, off-ball defender, help teammate, communicator, shot blocker, steal guy, defensive rebounder, blockout guy. How does he run the floor in each direction? Whether it's a guard, point guard, two guard, offensive rebounder. Does he go for it? Does he get it? Just a whole bunch of categories. Next category would be what I call traits. Passion, body language, what kind of teammate is he? Mm-hmm. What kind of heart does he have? When he's losing, is he different than when he's winning? When he's losing, does he quit? Or does he keep trying? When he's winning, does he coast? Or does he step on the gas a little bit more? Does he talk to his teammates when he's sitting there during the game? Or is he sitting there like with the hoodie on over his head, with his head down? So I'm looking at athleticism, skill, defense, rebounding, intangibles. Passing is part of the skill package. I love guys that can pass. I told you that at the beginning. I love to see the guy's vision, accuracy, willingness to give it up. And then I look at, the intangible traits, as I mentioned to you. IQ. Does he understand the game, or is he just playing the game? Does he care about winning, or does he care about himself? So I've got a whole bunch of categories and things that I'm looking at every time I'm watching a game.
You said it best. Now, with the one and done coming to an end in maybe another couple of years, and the NBA G League accepting high school players, like, what are your thoughts on the NBA draft possibly coming back again to allow high schools to enter the league?
Well, I'll answer the second part first. I think they should. Now, there's going to be guys that go into the draft and they're going to make mistakes. And then they're going to end up in the G League or maybe overseas. But they're going to get plenty of information, so hopefully they make an informed decision. But for the 5 or 10 guys that are really good enough to go and get drafted and make a team, I think it's great. I really do. I do like what the G League has brought to the basketball world. I love their concept of paying these players a good amount of money, training them with an NBA staff, and putting them in a location in the States. And they'll play different games. They're not going to be part of the G League, but they're going to play G League teams. They may play junior college teams. They could play teams from Canada or different parts of the world. I love the concept. I love how they're treating them like professionals. And those guys didn't want to be in college. They wanted to collect compensation at this time. And they wanted to take this avenue to try to make the pros. And it's great because now guys don't have to go overseas. They can do what guys used to do overseas here in the States.
Right.
And everybody else, the other 98%, they'll go to the college game. And that's why our college game is so exciting, because it does get the most and usually the best talent each and every year. So I like the G League. I love college basketball, and I hope the NBA eliminates the one and done and goes right from prep to pro.
Indeed. I just hope that a lot of the kids that do choose to go to the draft are the ones that are actually going to have the chance of getting drafted, because the way I see it, a lot of kids, they're probably going to look at, oh, I'm ready now. But then again, for everything that you just mentioned, for as far as how you evaluate players, like a lot of kids, they're seeing the money, they're seeing the all the things that are good. But once they get to that, that pre-draft camp or meetings with the scouts or whatever, like I think it becomes like, well, what's the word I'm thinking of?
It's hard. It's competitive. It's
well,
real.
Yeah, that's a good word for lack of a better term.
Hey, Dave, thousands of kids want to be in the NBA. Thousands.
Yeah.
Only 60 are going to get drafted. And what's going to separate those 60? And once you do get drafted, you're going to try to make a spot on a team with veterans who don't want to give it up. First and second year guys who just got a taste of being in the league, they're not giving their spot up. It really becomes a competitive, almost tenacious situation. And if you don't have a toughness about you mentally and physically and an alpha dog mentality, and you don't have a great work ethic, you better be super talented, because they're not going to keep you. And once they cut you, it's a business. And you're going to go somewhere else and you'll find a home somewhere. But, the international game, guys make a lot of money, but you have to pack up your bags and go live somewhere else. And I just think college basketball is the greatest place to be until you're a surefire pro. A lot of people will disagree with me, but that's my philosophy. Wait until you can not only be drafted, but maybe until you can actually help a pro team. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's stupid because you're going to miss your opportunity. You won't get paid as fast. I'm not so concerned about guys getting paid quickly. My thought is I want you to play in the NBA. If you play in the NBA, the money will follow you.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to get paid, then go take a shot at it.
The slow money wins faster than the quick money. That's my philosophy on it.
I love it. I'm going to steal it.
And I'd love to see you say it on the telecast too.
Oh, yeah. I got to credit my boy, though. Dave's joined with this one.
So this is one of my favorite parts of my podcast. This is what I love to ask all of my guests before I lead into the final question. Oh, before we even get to that, let's talk about your basketball camps.
Well, I'd like to have basketball camps because it's a way to get me back on the court, teaching the game. I do understand what kids need today from a basketball perspective. Try to create some good habits, eliminate bad habits, and talk to them about how hard recruiting is and what they can do to help themselves get recruited and be a better player. So I try to do these camps, in North Carolina or anywhere in the country that somebody wants to partner up with me. So shout out to anybody who wants to partner up on a basketball camp. I'm ready. But it's not a fluffy camp, Dave. It's not, I love all the highlights that you and I both watch on social media, but
right.
I'm running a camp for guys to learn how to compete a little bit better, improve their basketball IQ, improve their skill, and become a real player. So it's a lot of hard work, and it's very little fluff, but we do have some fun.
Well said. So now this is the big question time. So if you could go back in a time machine to 1985, what would you tell a young Paul Biancardi at 23 years of age as he's transitioning from being a college graduate to a college assistant and coaching at St. Lazarus?
I would tell myself, don't get so upset so quickly. And don't lose your temper so fast. And stop yelling at everybody. But the passion was unquestioned. It was just the question was how I channeled that passion. And you don't have to use that language, Paul, to get your point across. That's what I would tell myself.
Good words. Final question. What's next in the future for Paul Biancardi?
Well, professionally, I'm so happy and very satisfied and feel very privileged to stay at ESPN right now. I don't know how long that will be. I hope it will be as long as I want it to be. But I do enjoy it. I love it. I get an unbelievable platform to help other people. So right now, it's looking forward to the season coming up, the high school season. We have some great teams and great players again this year. I get a chance to do college games too, Dave. And, that's where my heart is really at in the college game. So I get to go to practices of the best coaches in the country, John Calipari, Bill Self, Bob McKillop here at Davidson, Pat Kelsey at Winthrop. I mean, you name a coach or a team, Scott Drew at Baylor. I've done so many games of the elite coaches. And when I say elite, I mean, they're all elite to me, all the Division I guys. And make no mistake about it, Division II and Division III have high-level coaches. They're just not in the spotlight. That's the only difference. But I love going to college games to be the analyst. And I get a chance to do all the high school games, the McDonald's game. We didn't have a chance to do it last year. So I'm just looking forward to the season. I'm preparing for it right now. I'm also doing some NBA draft work, which I really love because I'm seeing the players go from high school to years of grind and sacrifice were well.
Oh yeah, you were saying? I'm sorry.
No, all the years of basketball. I mean, I'm in the best spot I could ever be in right now. I'm in the high school game, recruiting, college basketball, and the NBA draft. I love the game 24/7. I could talk to you all night about it.
Indeed. Paul, thank you for coming on to share your story. And I wish you, the Coach B's basketball camps, and everything else the best of luck moving forward.
Well, Dave, thank you very much for having me. And thank you for your preparation for this interview. It was top notch. I mean, you went deep and you went far and wide into my background. And I appreciate that preparation. I respect it. And I can't wait to see you sometime during a game this year. We'll have our mask on, but, we can elbow.
Of course. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Well, everybody, this is episode 76 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to my good friend, Paul Biancardi. For those from the city of Boston, St. Lazarus, Salem State, Boston College, Ohio State, Wright State, and all those at ESPN that support my good friend Paul. Go check this interview out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. With everybody, stay blessed. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Peace.
Dave, one quick question for you.
Okay.
Celtics have a chance still against the Heat?
Oh, of course. I'm going with the Celtics all the way. It's going to be a tough series, but okay. I think the Celtics can pull it off.
Okay. All right. I'm going to shout you out when they do.
I bet. All right, guys. Stay safe. Stay blessed. Peace.
Thank you.